This is the 2-minute warning. 2 minutes until America Free Radio is live. This is your 1-minute warning. 1 minute until America Free Radio is live. "30 seconds to go. 30 seconds and we will be live." Ten, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Troop withdrawal ahead, cyber insecurity update. I'm Evan Haining. An announcement that the Trump administration will draw down about 4,000 troops from Afghanistan could come as early as next week.
We're being told by U.S. officials that if this drawdown actually does take place, that the bulk of the remaining U.S. forces will be focused on counterterrorism operations, targeting groups like al-Qaeda and the local ISIS affiliate. And where the mission will kind of have a setback a little bit, will be training local Afghan forces. They'll be reducing the number of U.S. advisors to the local Afghan troops.
Correspondent Ryan Brown. Another report of a hacker who turned a family's Ring security camera into a peeping Tom. A Kansas family was relaxing at home when a stranger's voice began commenting on every single move they made, even complimenting their Christmas tree.
That tree is looking really, really good, guys. Hello?
The dad quickly disconnected the security system, but not before the voice yelled at his little girl. And Mom says she's still scared.
Our daughter's still creeped out. She couldn't fall asleep that night, and I've slept with her every night since because she's so scared.
Well, the family's scared, too. The hacker sent them a pizza to let them know he knows where they live. Ring says it has no evidence of an unauthorized intrusion and said weak account security could be to blame. The House is scheduled to vote on the articles of impeachment against President Trump on Wednesday. Correspondent Jeff Zeleny says some freshman Democrats want Speaker Nancy Pelosi to draft Congressman Justin Amash as impeachment manager for the expected Senate trial.
He is a former Republican, now an independent congressman from Michigan. He's been he's been speaking out against the president more than most any other Republican member of Congress, and they thought it would sort of add some credibility to this to have him being one of the impeachment managers. That's essentially one of the prosecutors, if you will, from the House side when this goes into a trial in the Senate.
In such a trial, 67 senators would have to vote to convict. I'm Evan Haining.
Are you ready? Here we go. Hey, welcome everybody to X Squared Radio, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains from the America Free Radio studio. Today was Comic-Con in Charlotte today. I went and got this picture made. See this portrait right here? It's pretty good likeness, don't you think? Yeah, I thought so. This is where the past meets the future, and here the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. My name is Brooks Agnew. I am so glad that you are here tonight. All you YouTubers piling in, that's good. Keep it coming. I will try to watch that chat room and the TFR live chat room at the same time. You can listen two ways to this program by going to tfrlive.com and listening to the audio. That is our call-in station as well. And you can call in. The number's right there on the screen, 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. Any questions? All questions are welcome here. And while you're there, you might want to sign up for the archives, because tonight's program is going to be amazing. But there have been hundreds of amazing programs at Truth Frequency Radio, because this is where the truth freaks hang out, and we're not afraid to let our truth freak flag fly, and we welcome you here. All right, let's get started. We have a lot to go through. First, let me give you my Religion of Peace report. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 31 attacks. In these 31 attacks, they killed 197 innocent people. They injured 158 innocent people. They conducted 4 suicide blasts, and they spread their mayhem over 10 countries. All of this from the Religion of Peace. All right, you heard the news. I imagine tomorrow it is going to light up at 6 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time when the regular news resumes. This is the irregular news. This is the early bird news, because here on Sunday night we begin the news week. What I talk about here on this program on Sunday nights, other program planners around the country listen to, and tomorrow morning and all day tomorrow, all the way for the rest of the week, they will be using the headlines that we create right here on this program. So you're in the right place. And by the way, your headlines could be part of that. All you have to do is put your wisdom in the chat room over here. We have Terry and Alma and Alan and let's see who else we got in here. Dolores, David. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Put your wisdom in the chat room, and I will immortalize it by putting it out on the airwaves, and it'll be saved in archives all over the world. People will play this. And don't forget, down at the very bottom is the little Christmas gift. You see that little square with the $sign in it? That is the Top Chat donate button. Yes, you can donate right in the middle of chatting, and your chat shows up in big, bright neon colors and hangs out there for a while for me to notice out of the corner of my eye, and I will mention it. So it's a great feature for me. All right, Democrats versus America. You know, this has been going on for a long, long time. I don't mean like since 2017. No. See, America's not a very old country as far as names of countries go. I gave it some thought, and I decided that America is actually older than this world. In fact, I know of at least one other world where the soul of America existed. But here, on this planet, Americans have been the slaves before nearly every war since the beginning of time. Every zenith of mankind reached its glory days on the backs of Americans, people that make up America. It's as though the leaders of Earth for hundreds of thousands of years used the power of language and the blade or gun in the hands of one man to rule the world, specifically to enslave or oppress Americans. Each time the people fled to the wilderness, each time the global force would find them and destroy them. That is, until 1776. Enough people who wanted to be free made it to a far enough wilderness that they were able to withstand the armies of the global lords. Since then, we have been victorious. Until this last Friday, when 23 radical Democrats crafted their way into power inside our system of government and once again used words to conquer America. As Mark Twain said, there's a big difference between lightning bug and lightning. That is, if you simply chop off the last part of a name or a phrase, you can get something completely different. To put it another way, if one engages in that sort of word salad, that chopping, one can change not only the wording, but also the meaning. Okay, so now to an immediate example of language chopping. I call it semantics, which is really what it is. One that's been happening in real time. I noticed this on December 3rd when this tweet appeared, and I quote, "The Schiff impeachment report quotes George Mason during the 1787 Constitutional Convention without noting that his proposal for maladministration as a basis for impeachment was actually rejected." Yeah, it was used as a basis for this impeachment, but it was actually rejected in 1787. So we can see by recalling Mason's definition of impeachment back in the 18th century, but not recalling that Mason's definition was actually rejected at the time. The Democrats are doing some misleading language chopping. To put the matter politely, in so chopping, they are doing a disservice to the historical record and therefore to the truth. Herein lies the lies. George Mason, of course, was one of the founders gathered at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia 232 years ago. The Virginia-born Mason was a highly regarded lawyer and a scholar, and yet he was also an outlier. And thus, his suggestion that impeachment could be made on the basis of maladministration was rejected. Instead, in Article 2 of the Constitution, Section 4, you could pull it out if you want to. I've got my copies right here. This is my copy. Article 2, Section 4. The founders stipulated that impeachment would be reserved for treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. As we can readily see, words such as treason impose a much higher standard on impeachment than mere maladministration. In fact, what we could call maladministration abuse of power. We could call maladministration failure to keep your oath of office. See what I'm talking about? Semantics. Yeah. In fact, not only was Mason less than happy about the outcome of that definitional argument about impeachment, he wasn't happy with the Constitution overall. Thus, he was one of only 3 delegates to the Philadelphia Convention who refused to sign the document before it went to the 13 states for ratification. The Constitution was, in fact, ratified 9 months later. In other words, our sacred founding document, drafted by James Madison, was good enough for George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, but it wasn't good enough for George Mason. Happily, Mason was free to follow his conscience, and yet today, in our time, it's highly disingenuous for Schiff for Brains and the House Democrats to cite Mason as the source of a proper definition of an impeachable offense, when not only was Mason's definition of impeachment rejected, but the Constitution itself was rejected by Mason. Indeed, we might ask ourselves, what would have happened these past 230 years if maladministration had been the standard? Is there any U.S. president who couldn't have been accused at one time or another during his tenure in office of maladministration? In fact, if one sets the bar of impeachment low enough, it could become the equivalent of a no-confidence vote in a parliament. Sound familiar? Such no-confidence votes happen all the time in parliamentary systems. And when they happen, the prime minister falls. Yet, at the risk of dwelling on the obvious, we must point out that here in the U.S., we don't have prime ministers. We don't have ministers of security. We don't have ministers of press. We don't have ministers of money, I think. We have presidents. And the powers, duties, and responsibilities of presidents are listed right there in Article 2 of the Constitution, including the declaration that they are elected to serve full 4-year terms, barring some truly horrendous criminal act. We shouldn't have to spend time going over such settled history. After all, the Constitution's definition of the presidency and of impeachment has served this country for well more than 2 centuries. And I might add, even though America is not a very old country per se, we do have the oldest Constitution in the world. Pretty incredible. Indeed, if we think about the Ukraine mess in the sweep of U.S. history, we are struck by the smallness of this matter. Stephen Castor, ace counsel for the House Republicans in the impeachment inquiry, was blunt on Monday, getting right to the point. And this is what he said. To impeach a president who 63 million people voted for over 8 lines in a call transcript is baloney. Fortunately, Americans are agreeing with Castor and the House of Representatives. If Democrats think Trump is a bad president, so what? That's what elections are for. And there'll be another one, just as the Constitution says, in about 11 months. In the meantime, these 23 radical Democrats designed to replace the voters' judgment with their judgment. They succeeded, and damn the torpedoes. A December 10th Quinnipiac poll finds that a majority of Americans are once again against impeachment. Again, they've never been for it, actually. We might recall that in October, at the peak of the mainstream media's mania over the whistleblower, that's the CIA Ramella, okay, that's his last name. A slight plurality of Americans, 48% to 56%, were in favor of impeachment according to the deep state's polls. That's still not very good. Right now it's 51-45 against. That's pretty resounding. Even in their own polls, I think it's actually higher than that if you were to poll people with, say, cell phones instead of people with landlines. So it's interesting to see that some pro-impeachment House Democrats are now having second thoughts. One is, Representative Alyssa Slotkin, one of those moderates who last year won a Republican-held seat in Michigan. Indeed, in late September, she touted her own national security credentials as the reason that she won. Yet now, in the wake of pushback from her constituents, she is now saying, I'm undecided. In fact, the December 11th headline in the Washington Post reads, House Democrats brace for some defections among moderates on impeachment of Trump. How many defections? That's what we want to know tonight. We don't know. The Post guesses half a dozen, max, although the Hill suggests the number might be more. I think the number is somewhere around 21. Yes, 21 Democrats. There are actually 34 who need to vote no or vote present. They need to break out of the ranks. They need to unlock their elbows with the other socialists. Because in 11 months, actually maybe sooner than that, because in some of these states, they have recall provisions. Yes, they can actually be recalled by the state legislature. They can recall and replace those what are called faithless electors. So watch for fireworks. Let's see. It's worth recalling that only 2 Democrats voted against starting the impeachment inquiry in October. Remember, we had bipartisan opposition towards starting it. In other words, it's not a cinch anymore. So if the constitutional standard of impeachment were George Mason's maladministration, Trump might well do just fine. But, of course, maladministration is not the standard, and so let's have an election. Just like always, let's just go to the voters. What do you say? To see what the voters want for the following 4 years. I don't think that's really what they want to do. Oh, as a last note, let's not be too hard on old George Mason. He was a good man and a patriot, and he did raise some interesting and constructive points. For instance, as historian Jill Lepore recalled 2 years ago, Mason was particularly concerned about the possibility that some plutocratic wannabe president might seek to buy the support of electors in the Electoral College. Certainly not. That would never happen, would it? Clinton. As Mason said in Philadelphia, one objection against electors was the danger of their being corrupted by the candidates themselves. Surely, Mason said, we'd want to impeach a president for that. And yes, in fact, we would want to do that. The founders wisely, specifically included bribery as an impeachable offense. But here's the problem. The people that are being bribed are the ones who would be voting. I'm just saying. You don't really have to go back very far. Go back to 1991, 1992. We had George Bush Sr. was president at the time. In 91, when you started the Gulf War, to go free the Kuwaitis, I think he had about a 91% approval rating too. It's just way, way up there. Nobody could possibly challenge him. And the other thing that was going on is late night in Congress, they had these, you could read things into the congressional record. And we had a congressman, his name was Bob Dornan. He was from California, San Diego district, I think. Really, really smart guy. He never forgot names. He gave everybody credit. He gave everybody acknowledgement for the things that they wrote, things that they did. He knew history so well. He would stand there at the microphone in Congress and he would read into the congressional record at 2 o'clock in the morning, pile after pile after pile of condemning information about Bill Clinton, on and on and on about grades and lying and murders and drugs. And you just thought to yourself, okay, Bob, okay, we get it. The guy's a full-on criminal. Why would we ever elect him? And yet, he got the nomination. Bill Clinton got the nomination. He was from a loser state, probably ranked 49th or 50th in education. It was broke. It was embroiled in controversy and scandal. And yet, he won the delegation. He won the nomination. There was a little thing I like to call, and you can read about it in Charm of Favor. That's the best-selling book that I wrote, and if you haven't read it, you need to read it. I call it the Manila Envelope Campaign. So much money was being made selling drugs and weapons out of Arkansas, which was Bill Clinton's state, for which he was the governor. Don't nothing happen around here but what it don't happen to the Union. You know what I'm saying? Everything that flew, everything that left got skimmed. But there's a problem. All that cash Every local bank was stuffed to the windows with cash. Everybody that was involved in running the guns, flying, doing logistics, their backyards were stuffed with cash. And Bill Clinton was stuffed with cash. Couldn't do anything with it. So what they did is they delivered it in manila envelopes to the superdelegates. See, Democrats have a little different system of electing their nominee. They can have their caucuses all they want, all their little elections, state by state. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Hillary Clinton said it herself when she said, don't count out the superdelegates. Superdelegates are like former congressmen, former governors, former speakers. These are people that have held high offices in the Democrat Party. They're loyal. They're trustworthy. Trustworthy to do what? Trustworthy to make a decision in the best interests of the party. I don't exactly know what that means, but basically what it boils down to is these superdelegates can override all of the Democrat electors. It doesn't matter what elector votes what. They can be overridden by the superdelegates, and that's exactly what happened. And that's how Bill Clinton got the nomination. He didn't get it because he was the best man for the job. He got it because he bribed every single one of the superdelegates with piles of cash. Why do you think all these old Democrats are all millionaires? Where do you think they got all their money? They didn't get it from running a business, part-time when they go home on vacation. They got it from dealing just like this. So today, presidential hopefuls may spend about $2 billion in their quest to be the 46th president. Oh, yes, that would be Democrats Tom Steyer, Mike Bloomberg, with Bloomberg, of course, potentially spending the most. Might that sort of money have some influence? Well, of course it does. He funded Pueblo Sin Frontera and forced millions of poor people to walk 2,000 miles with their children to smash themselves against our southern border just to make Donald Trump look bad. He didn't care that his money was pouring into cartels and ruining entire countries. He didn't care that 75% of females making that journey were raped along the way, some dozens of times. He didn't care if you knew about it, because he also knows the 6 people who own the world's media. He's one of them. Bloomberg is a media mogul. He knows you will follow wherever their crafty words, like spells of a warlock, tell you to go. He doesn't care about America. He wants America to disappear once and for all. In fact, given Bloomberg's fortune, estimated at somewhere around $52 billion, but who really can count that high? It's possible to think that, well, he could have a lot of influence among delegates at the Democrat National Convention in Milwaukee next summer, don't you think? And if Bloomberg could somehow snag the Democrat nomination in 2020, one can only guess about the possible effect of his money on the electors of the Electoral College. Could be, Let's hope that we never have to find out. And yet still, it's nice to know that the bribery provision for impeachment is right there in the Constitution, loud and clear, just in case we ever need it. And speaking of need, many of you need to get ready for next year. There's a lot to do next year. 2019 was the year of awakening. 2018 was the year of awakening. 2019 was the year of light. 2020 is the year of action. I'm declaring it right now. You can just take it to the bank. 2020 is the year of action. That means all of you got to get off the porch. We got stuff to do. Don't worry about it. Don't bother your head with it. I'll figure it out. I'll feed it to you as we go, and we can move in a coordinated and organized fashion. Truth is a powerful weapon in the hands of someone who will use it. Truth is also a very dangerous weapon in the wrong hands because it carries with it, the potential to be chopped like semantics. We'll take a quick break. We do every half hour. You YouTubers hang out. We'll take a 3-minute break, listen to some more egregious news, and we'll be back right after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio from the America Free Radio Studios coming at you.
It's amazing how people have been raving about iAlife all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with iAlife, it's a 99% pure CBD oil, but the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with iAlife. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to ialife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's ialife.com, AYA life.com.
We exist in the security and comfort of our worlds. Paved paths, lights, and manicured lawns give us peace of mind that our world has been tamed, and we are its master. But other worlds exist on the edge of our sight. On the edge of our awareness, the shadows move. The woods fill with the unblinking eyes of the nightmares our ancestors warned us about. Some of us have stumbled into these forgotten realms, whether on purpose or completely by surprise. I'm Brent Thomas. Join us on the Paranormal Portal Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight Pacific Standard Time as we journey into the world of the paranormal phenomena.
Enter the Paranormal Portal if you dare.
Okay, welcome back to X Squared Radio here at the America Free Radio Studios. Listen, one of the things people is really excited about, people are really excited about, is the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. Now, for some reason, I don't really know why, right before we went live tonight, my servers out in California got nuked. That's true. All the websites are down right now. But you can write this one down. It's the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. It goes by the acronym NPIEE.com. NPIEE.com. If you go there, right on the main page, right as soon as you go in, right there in the middle, is a registration widget. You could put in your first and last name, email address, zip code, and country. And you will be given our newsletter, which is now coming out about once a week. I have an assistant who is helping with that. Finally, we're getting a regular newsletter out. And we're going to keep you up to date with what's going on with the expedition. Next year, I'd say early January, we are going to provide a way for you to actually view our development videos. Now, myself and Brad Olson's the co-expedition leader. We're both intrepid explorers. We've collected video that no one else has seen. He just got back from 26 days in the Antarctic, and he took some amazing footage, which this last week was mixed down and is getting ready for upload. So you're going to get access to video footage nobody else in the world has ever seen before. And as the year develops, remember I told you 2020 is the year of action, we're going to make a dry run. Yes, we're making a dry run to Moscow, up through St. Petersburg, all the way to Murmansk. It's like way up there. And we're going to try to get on the ship. We're going to try to get some footage for you so you can see what we see. And we'll be uploading those videos as well. You get access to all of that for a very, very small subscription fee. All of your subscription money that goes into that account is going to be used to charter that ship next year at this time. Next year at this time, we're going to put down about $2 million to charter that ship. And then later that summer, probably at the end of August, we're going to try and go as late as possible so we can get a little tiny bit of a star time. Because as you know, the sun never goes down in the summertime up there on the Arctic Circle. And we're going to go looking for the opening in the crust. There is some great evidence that has come out in the last couple of years about another ocean being on the inside of the crust, about mountains being on the inside of the crust, and maybe, just maybe, there is space there. Now, to answer your question, no, we're not sailing in. There's no way we're taking a nuclear-powered ship and sailing it inside planet Earth. Get real, people. But if we do find an opening and we see it, you'll see it. You know why? Because you're going to be a subscriber. You're going to have that pay-per-view subscription, and you're going to be able to see what we see live from the boat. Now, I'm not talking about the legend of Skull Island. I'm not talking about these silly 10-season, reality programs that you see on the channels on cable. I'm talking about a once-in-a-lifetime expedition. We can only take 125 people, and here's who's going. About 100 scientists. We've been speaking with universities from Carnegie Science to Stanford University, Washington University, Cambridge. We've been talking to universities all around the world, and they have grad student teams that are willing to come on the ship and take measurements for those 10 days that we're at sea. And it'll be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them as well. Only we're going to gift it to them because we want them to come. Then there'll be about 20 to 25 filmmakers. Okay, these are people that are going to be filming all those scientists under the stress of being on a polar cruise in the roughest seas on the planet on an icebreaker that we're going to be breaking ice with for about a week. And 20 special VIP locations 20 people will be able to come with us. Of course, it won't be free for them. So you rich Japanese businessmen that are out there, you want to be the first to do something? This is your chance. All of that is going to be made available to you at nippie.com, NPIEE.com. Go there regularly. Make it one of your regular stops each day to see what's going on. And by all means, register for the newsletter. That's free. We send you the newsletter for free. And there'll be all kinds of goodies in there for you. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the ESA. This is pretty cool, the European Space Agency. Are you a passionate, space-loving radio amateur? You could be. You could be. You never know. You have the equipment. And you could be the first to catch a signal from the ESA's brand new experimental satellite next week. Looks to be about 2 days from now. The ESA is going to be launching OPSAT. This is the new CubeSat. These CubeSats they look a little bit like a beer cooler with a bunch of antennas sticking out of it. It's you can pile a bunch of them in, like a UPS truck. We take it up into space, open the roll-up door, and kick all his CubeSats out. This is one of them. It has a special design. It's going to be going up on a Soyuz rocket from Kourou, French Guiana. Of course, you have the maximum crustal velocity there. So when you launch, you have to use less energy to get up to 18,000 miles an hour to fall into orbit around the Earth. The satellite will launch with ESA's CHEOPS exoplanet tracker. After it reaches space, OPSAT will deploy its solar panels and ultra-high frequency antenna. It will then start signals back home to Earth. It is then that radio amateurs will have an opportunity to catch the first signals from this satellite and find it out in the cosmos. Now, once you find it, you can tap into the feed. It'll carry a computer 10 times more powerful than any on any ESA spacecraft, a high-resolution camera, radio equipment, and more. Experimenters can use these onboard tools to test software and apps. Investigations that are currently planned for the little CubeSat included experiments that, quickly process images of Earth in flight. Hey, that was something that Lucky wanted to do on Quantum Connections. She wants to be able to look at Earth from space anytime she wants. There's a good feature. Control rovers remotely. Test the idea of running a completely automated space mission using artificial intelligence. Use a programmable radio receiver to measure interference and communication with other spacecraft. Investigate the idea of using laser light to transmit data securely. Because, laser light, it's like this. So if you're over here, you're not going to pick up anything on that laser. You got to be in the path of that laser to pick it up. And by the way, have it on good authority. Quantum Connections, they had an accident with one of their pieces of equipment. I think it got going a little bit too fast and sneezed a blower belt. Anyway, I think the blower's been replaced, and I think it's going to be back on the track this next week. I'm just saying it's a possibility. In fact, Lucky will probably put a little note right down here saying either it's still broken or it's out of the shop. We'll find out. And so then we'll be back on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You'll really like it. All right. I want to take a little bit of time because so many of you have asked me to do this. I've got enough time to do this. Charm a Favor is an amazing thriller. It is a mixture of old history and current events, some of them classified, that I've been able to put into the book because once I find out about it, it ain't classified anymore. Still broken, but we're going to try to do a mobile studio. So tune in Monday at 7 at tfrlive.com, and we should be up and going again. It'll be great. I only have 4 work days left this year. Plant shutting down, doing other things, retooling and inventory, and I don't do that stuff. So I'm taking the rest of the year off, and I'll be back on January 6th. Not taking the year off of radio, though. This is my love. That I do just so I can have enough money to do what I love doing, being with you. So what I want to do is I'm going to read you chapter 28 from Charm of Favor. If you haven't got the book yet, every time you make your way to Amazon, you get distracted and you end up buying, fluoride-free toothpaste or winter gloves or something. You're going to remember this. Because when you read Charm of Favor, the one thing that you see is everything that's going on around us right now, because this book was kind of written a little bit in the future. So here we go. Charm of Favor, chapter 28. Just about every book on leadership will tell you that the secret to great success is delegation. Billions of dollars are made trying to convince businesses to buy a book, implement a program, watch a webinar, or launch a new software application. The truth is that successful students make a famous teacher. Simple as that. A platinum-selling singer makes a great studio. An Oscar makes a great producer. They all have one thing in common. They're all wrong. From the very beginning of mankind on the earth, there is one principle that conquers all. Oh, the gurus and wizards will tell you it is determination that produces success. In the same way, lottery winners convince more people to buy lottery tickets. Success stories are used as daily motivational videos for tens of thousands of people buying licenses to be consultants and loading their laptops with lead generation software. The real principle of world domination consistently results from loyalty. Blood oath loyalty allows the leader to sleep when the wind blows. That is to say, the crime boss knows he will never face a day in court because his people are loyal. No witness will live to testify. When Eric Holder withheld subpoenaed information and refused to answer questions that might incriminate agents in his department, he was convicted of contempt of Congress. He was the highest cabinet official in modern times to be convicted by Congress of criminal activity. Did it matter? Not even one little bit. Why? Because the Democrats have a mind that is single to the glory of darkness. There is really only one Democrat in Washington, and it is commanded to vote a certain way, nothing wavering. From 1848 until the present day, no Democrat has broken ranks with the DNC and survived past the next election. Some do not survive past the next sunrise. When a sovereign American like Donald Trump, hang on, just had an emergency text come in. It's not an emergency. Everything's okay. When a sovereign American like Donald Trump becomes president and seeks to transfer the power of Washington back to the people from whom it constitutionally derives its power, dark principalities immediately oppose him. The people have always wondered who that principality might be. Most people believe in God or in some supreme being that knows all and has the power to save souls. But when you ask those people if they believe in a devil or a demon intelligence that seeks the enslavement of and misery of every living soul, the answer is almost universally yes. Perhaps it is because they need someone or something to blame for the poor condition of their lives. A successive string of failures or the scarcity of supernatural blessings that seem to befall them. Maybe it is a curse. Maybe it is a simple spell. Maybe, just maybe, there is some exiled immortal deep in the bowels of the earth who demands loyalty and promises mortal wealth and pleasure in exchange for an oath and a covenant. It is a covenant that few get the opportunity to make. For millennia, men and women have slain the person in front of them to get one step closer to the actual seat of power. But for the rules governing the direct face-to-face contact with this evil fallen one, the entire human race would have been hopelessly lost. No, the rules allow for a handful of men and women to make this oath to the Dark Lord, and for all the rest who would freely trade their poverty for talent, fame, wealth, and power over other men in exchange for their eternal soul, to make their pledge to a human mortal under his authority and command. The tools of loyalty are many, and they are more powerful than anything in the universe. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life are but mere weaknesses in comparison. Jealousy is so powerful that it can bring down angels and gods. The desire to rule over other humans has been the driving force behind nearly every war mankind has fought. In the struggle for worlds, men are incorporated as the primary force and command. Were it not so, demons would conscribe the mortal occupants of all worlds as easily as humans domesticate sheep. The governing rules are tied to the very energy that resonated to make third-dimensional matter. That is to say, the instant gods or demons begin to circumvent the free will of mortals, the entire universe would disassociate and go back to the chaos of singularities from which it came. What is also known is that the souls who earned the lineage of the seed of Adam progress on a different slope than demons or the seed of Lucifer. As it is written, they are created a little lower than the angels, but their potential is unlimited, far greater than any angel. Few mortals there be with the concept of the exaltation of a soul. Knowing the potential of the mortal soul, who can understand the choice of darkness over light made by the mightiest men of earth? Now we go into a conversation between an agent in the book whose name is Lim Shun and a force that communicates with him through a screen. It's called the Voice. The future is a reasonable speculation, Mr. Lim, said the Voice. I am well aware of the possibilities, but there are probabilities to be considered as well. Our artificial asset is calculating by the microsecond and revealed a strong possibility that our Mr. Qassam has been identified and located by the enemy, said Lim Shun. A distraction is in order. A distraction is in order, perhaps, asked the Voice. If you're asking if we can use a distraction to get him to the target, no. Nashville will most likely escape, said Lim Shun. He is a wounded wolf, said the Voice. He won't abandon the chase, if that's what you're implying. The device is designed to be effective up to 500 miles, said Lim Shun. Air Force One is in the air. Both of them, said the Voice. All according to plan, said Lim Shun. Not all, Mr. Lim, said the Voice. The President is aboard. Along with his cabinet, all possibilities have been considered, said Lim Shun. Your confidence in your assets may be your only weakness, Mr. Lim, said the Voice. Their snake is useless without its head, said Lim Shun. Your team is ready? Asked the Voice. The media has been cued, and the scripts have been written for the Democrat team to assume leadership once the operation is completed, said Lim Shun. And what of the people? Asked the Voice. Placing 2/3 of the country in soup lines allowed us to lay the foundation for our government inside the American Republic 85 years ago, said Lim Shun. Yes, even my superiors were impressed. The world's greatest economic powerhouse brought to its knees in just a few days without firing a shot. Mr. Harry Hopkins raised the bar for breaking the will of a republic, said the voice. Pretty impressive, considering there was no artificial intelligence at that time. It was among your finest work, sir, said Lim Shun, carefully choosing his words. I accept your accolades, Mr. Lim, but this time it is your work. Delegation is not always a clumsy tool, said the voice. We all start somewhere, sir, said Lim Shun. Well, let's start by getting your Operation Dewclaw to accomplish the mission, said the voice. If you will excuse me, sir, there are decisions to make, said Lim Shun. We shall be waiting, said the voice, and the eagle on the screen faded to black. The news media mergers took decades to accomplish. It was a nearly $1 trillion war that was fought for the power to control the news and information America received. Warner Communications merged with Time in 1990. Within 3 years, the internet threatened to tear the attention of Americans away from the steady feed of propaganda and exclusive content by which the syndicate placed Bill Clinton into office in 1992. Americans were confident they could win the game by merging AOL with Time Warner in the largest mega merger in history, worth more than $146 billion. The world's largest browser provider took control of the world's largest cable and news provider. The events of September 11, 2001 only made Americans thirst that much more for alternative sources of news, and AOL was directly connected with an audience that was growing exponentially. The syndicate would not let this effort succeed. A few months later, in early 2002, Bill Clinton made the public declaration that he had instructed the Department of Justice to sue Microsoft under the Sherman Antitrust Act to break up their monopoly on internet browsers. The plan was successful in crushing the runaway rise in internet businesses and smashing the mega merger into the biggest financial blunder in merger history. There was no question that Donald Trump had single-handedly unraveled the globalist plan to bring America to its knees and then to surrender. If Hillary had been elected, America would have been rolled onto its side and been branded with the global seal of ownership. Its armed forces would have been merged with those of the UN. Its treasury would have fallen under the financial control of the Crown. Its system of education, healthcare, and media had already been surrendered. But, as predicted by a handful of statistical analysts, Hillary was defeated. For 30 years, Trump has been planning and refining his platform in the private sector while building a multi-billion-dollar empire of success with more than 500 businesses. Hillary crafted her platform by selling official influence to world leaders for billions of dollars. She had sold so much of America and so much of herself that she could not articulate her policy to a single reporter. The change in leadership was apparent within hours of his Republican nomination as candidate. Even with the debate questions in advance, Hillary was a disaster in the televised debates. She was no match for Trump's boardroom experience, and he seemed unaffected by the charm of favor. His inauguration was like nothing ever stated in any speech by any leader, transferring power not peacefully from one party to another, but from Washington to the people. He knew perfectly well that the syndicate had succeeded in merging both parties into one with the single purpose of subduing the people. He also knew his policies would break the dam, holding millions of Americans back from their potential success. America roared forward, adding $5 trillion in value to the stock market and pulling the entire world with it. The global media and elites beat their breasts and slashed their skin in protest. It must have satisfied the dark demon who protected them, because somehow not one single officer or soldier in the Clinton crime syndicate was accused or even indicted for the embezzlement, graft, sale, and of national security secrets or the use of U.S. intelligence agencies and bureaus as professional surveillance and evidence management services designed to destroy Donald Trump and his family. They were not prepared for a national law enforcement program focusing on pedophilia, however. Thousands of the DNC's soldiers. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back in 30 seconds. We'll finish this sentence. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
Afghan drawdown, winter on the move. I'm Evan Haining. A Trump administration official says the White House expects to announce a withdrawal of about 4,000 troops from Afghanistan.
Whether this decision is actually announced remains to be seen. The Trump administration has been weighing this for some time, and this all comes as talks with the Taliban are ongoing. The Taliban spokesman welcomed the news that the U.S. could be withdrawing to extent. However, the Taliban have also recently attacked a major U.S. military base, something that put the talks with the Taliban on a temporary hold.
Correspondent Ryan Brown. Well, the wintry blast that's hitting the West and Midwest is expanding into the East. Here's National Weather Service meteorologist Richard Bond with a warning about what some may see during tomorrow's drive to work.
Monday morning's commute will be hampered by snow from extending parts across Missouri, eastward into the Ohio Valley, and even in the mid-Atlantic region around the D.C. area. We could have a mix of rain, sleet, and some freezing rain, as well as some snow at higher elevations.
In Atlanta, Georgia, police have arrested 2 teenagers in connection with a shooting that wounded a man in a busy suburban mall food court in the height of the Christmas shopping season. And a vigil was held today to remember Barnard College freshman Tessa Majors, who was stabbed and killed in the Manhattan Park last week. Correspondent Polo Sandoval reports a 13-year-old boy has been arrested.
Police do say that the teen that they have in custody was found with a knife and admitted to being involved in Wednesday's attempted robbery and deadly stabbing. But the question prosecutors are asking, to what extent? You see, according to the New York Times, the 13-year-old faces a felony murder charge, meaning he is not accused of stabbing Tessa Majors, but of taking part in the robbery.
The boy said he watched his 2 friends grab Majors and put her in a chokehold before taking things from her pockets. She reportedly bit one of them on the finger before being slashed with a knife and killed. I'm Evan Haynes.
believe how fast this program goes. Welcome back to X Squared Radio, coming to you live from the America Free Radio studios, somewhere east of the Appalachian Mountains. And tonight we are simulcasting on Truth Frequency Radio Network, one of the largest user-supported networks in the world, at tfrlive.com. It is where the truth freaks hang out, and we're not afraid to let our truth freak flag fly. And we're also on YouTube Live. So if you want to see what's going on here at the America Free Radio Studios, it's an easy thing to do. Just go to youtube.com/Brooks Agnew, and boom, you're there. And by the way, while you're there, subscribe. And don't forget to turn on the little notifications bell. And that way, each time we go live, you'll get a little notification and you'll be able to participate, which there are a lot of people in the chat room right now. Thank you, Agatha, for the very sweet words. It's good to be here. And Alan, I'm glad that your approval of this as another great show. I really appreciate it. And Agatha says, cats are a gift from God. My cat is asleep in the chair right next to me right here. You can't see him, but he doesn't care if you can see him or not. Anyway, really quick, I want to tell you about WowieTel. If you do international business, or even if you just have people in another country that you want to call on a regular basis from your cell phone, all you have to do is get the WowieTel app. The other party, they don't need it. You can call any number anywhere in the world for one fee each month. That's it. You can call Russia. That would excite them, wouldn't it? You can call Europe. You can call Africa. You can call South America. And they don't have to have any app. Don't be cheap. Don't text them and say, hey, can you download the W app on your phone, or the S app, or the T app, or the P app? There are a bunch of them out there. I'm not going to mention their names. You don't want to do that, because then your meta information is stored and sold by those companies. WowieTel doesn't do that. Don't worry about it. All your information is safe. You have a direct satellite connection with WowieTel. Go to wowietel.com and use the promotional code BA2019 for a special discount. Okay, let's get back to the main show. Yeah, there we go. Change screens. I want to finish chapter 28. It's very short, but all the chapters are written with this kind of intrigue, a lot of information, a lot of things going on there that at the time that the book was being written, it wasn't really available. So we were talking about the global media and the elites beat their breasts and slashed their skin in protest of Trump's election. It must have satisfied the dark demon who protected them, because somehow not one single officer or soldier in the Clinton crime syndicate was accused or even indicted in the embezzlement, graft, or sale of national security secrets, or the use of U.S. intelligence agencies and bureaus as professional surveillance and evidence management services designed to destroy Donald Trump and his family. We know that now because all the evidence is out, but I knew it 2 years ago when this book was written. They were not prepared for a national law enforcement program focusing on pedophilia, however. Thousands of the DNC's soldiers were indicted for the heinous crime of child molestation, as the Attorney General knew all too well the rite of passage into the syndicate. They were all guilty and relied on the syndicate to maintain their immunity from prosecution for a nominal fee. Those who were current on their donations were spared. Excuse me. While a delinquency garnered betrayal. Still, America might not be totally crushed when the lights were turned off if its national leader survived to show them the way back. One thing that history has repeatedly shown, however, is that catastrophes are opportunities for those who are prepared. And of course, the best way for preparation is to meet opportunity. is to be the cause of the catastrophe. So it is a great chapter. There's a lot more to it, and I'm going to spare you the ride because you need to read the book. And I don't want to leave you hanging, but this is the kind of detail that you'll get in the book. Lots of inside looks inside the war that's going on in the Pentagon. All right. I want to talk a little bit about, I do like talking about government, but I don't really like talking about politics too much. But a system of government is interesting to me because, you know, once you put this machine in operation, you think that, you know, things are going to go a certain way. You hope that they will or that they won't. And then you sit back and watch, you know, what you've started. And when this republic was designed, it was the first of its kind. There were democracies out there, but they don't last very long because they're basically mobs. Anytime you have a country that's a majority rule simply by population, you have the places where people live, which the coastal cities, ruling the entire rest of the country or the entire rest of the empire. We watch the Roman Empire, we watch the British Empire, we watch Marco Polo, we watch Alexander the Great. They all crumbled because the ruling population did not take care of the needs that a government should take care of, commerce and general welfare and some kind of unified system to help all the countries work together. If that's not there, then it doesn't serve those people and they'll rise up and overthrow you. So I call this story the democracy weapon. Because when democracy is put in place, it allows concentrated and well-organized populations to have significant effects in a government that is not a tyrannical dictatorship, which a democracy normally isn't. America's leading Islamist groups may have just lost an elected cheerleader. This week, we had the arrest of Pennsylvania State Representative Movita Johnson Harrell. Have you heard this story? But plenty more were elected on November 5th to take her place. Ms. Johnson Harrell, who's been a featured speaker at fundraisers for the Greater Los Angeles chapter of CARE. You've heard of CARE, haven't you? The Council on American Islamic Relations. We've had Bridget Gabriel on this program, and we talked at length about what CARE does, who they're made up of, where their money comes from, and what they do with their money. She was indicted on December 4th for embezzling more than $500,000 from donations that were meant for the poor, drug addicted and mentally ill, spending it on lavish vacations, fox fur coats, and even her own campaign. But fortunately for organizations such as CARE, 26 Muslim candidates recently answered its call to fill local school board, city council, state assembly seats across the country. But as with Johnson Harrell and CARE, a significant number of these freshman public officials possesses ties to extremists. And you don't have to go very far either. Sometimes it's just once removed. Take Abrar Omish, who was elected in Fairfax County School Board in Northern Virginia. Her dad, his name is Issam Omish, was the former president of the Muslim American Society, which U.S. prosecutors have concluded is the overt arm of the Muslim Brotherhood in America. Issam was forced to resign from a state immigration board in 2007 after a video surfaced of him praising Palestinians who chose the jihad way to liberation. In 2011, Issam admitted he was a former Muslim Brotherhood leader, and in 2016, he wrote a tribute to Brotherhood members on social media, calling them the most noble, humane, and gentle of Muslims. Abrar appears to have adopted her dad's zeal. While studying at Yale, the 24-year-old was a member of the Muslim Student Association. You know who they are, right? They're the ones that control all the money for all the mosques in the United States. It was founded by Muslim Brotherhood expatriates in 1963 at the goal of spreading Islam as students in North America. She was part of MSA-led efforts to silence Muslim reformer Ayaan Hirsi Ali by attacking her scholarly credentials. She later appeared in a podcast with the International Institute of Islamic Thought. They're called the IIIT, an Islamic think tank that seeks to institute the Islamic Revolution in the United States. Abrar's victory elicited congratulations from Islamist leaders from Muslim Brotherhood factions in Tunisia, in Egypt, and also in Syria. Let's see. Ibrahim Samirah was one of two Muslim Democrats whose election helped to flip the Virginia House of Delegates. During his college years, he was a member of Students for Justice in Palestine, the leading proponent of the anti-Semitic boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign in America, also known as BDS for many of you out there. His dad, Sabri Ibrahim Samirah, is a prominent Jordanian Muslim Brotherhood leader who was barred entry into the United States for 10 years, likely because of his chairmanship of the Islamic Association of Palestine, a now defunct Muslim Brotherhood front group that served as the propaganda wing of Hamas inside the United States. Omar Tarazi won a seat on the Hilliard, Ohio City Council. After being appointed to that position in March, he is the son of Mohammed Nabik Tarazi, an imam who attended the radical Omar Ibn el-Khattab Mosque in Columbus, where 3 congregants have been convicted since 2003 on terrorism charges. The elder Tarazi even officiated the wedding of Lyman Ferris, an al-Qaeda terrorist sentenced to 20 years in prison for plotting to blow up the Brooklyn Bridge. But Abrar, Ibrahim, and Omar are not their fathers. They represent a new breed of Islamists. They're politically savvy. They're second-generation activists who simultaneously espouse or quietly advance the contradictory core principles of social liberalism and theocracy. But have Islamists joined with progressives to advance social justice or for political expediency? I think the latter. In its 2019 report, and you can, I put a link in my notes, so if you want to access my notes by going to tfrlive.com/X2 radio, you could read this for yourself. It is chilling. The report's called The Rise of American Muslim Changemakers. The Rise of American Muslim Changemakers. You can put it into Google, I'm sure, and look this paper up. Oh, yeah, you're in for a treat. CARE laments that this alliance, quote, requires working on issues that may, on the surface level, appear to be at odds with traditional community norms and values, close quote. In other words, you could drink a little, right? You could have a BLT sandwich. You know, might be at odds with traditional community norms and values. But the core principles are what's important. You know, you're appearing to be one of them. You're appearing to like baseball. You may even have a dog. You know, whatever it takes. You got to look like them. You got to walk like them. You got to talk like them. You could put the hijab in the closet. You could put a little makeup on. Maybe you can wear the hijab. Maybe you can wear the turban. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So Representative Samirah Virginia's recently elected House delegate, left no doubts about the integrity of the Blue-Green Alliance in a 2018 speech before American Muslims for Palestine, an anti-Semitic hate group sympathetic to Hamas. Muhammad had to form treaties with his enemies, right? Samara said he had to form alliances with people who weren't necessarily believers of his message, who would later on become people who would be his enemies. This is how they teach. But for many politically ambitious Muslims, the allure of identity politics is too seductive to ignore. Following the election, dozens of mainstream news articles glowingly reported, you remember this, right? I'm sure you do, that Somali immigrant Safia Khalid won the Lewiston, Maine City Council seat despite hateful social media attacks and racist trolls. But Khalid's Democratic opponent reportedly endured threats and intimidation to go beyond cyberbullying. Khalid's supporters allegedly surrounded the opponent's home, pounding and kicking his doors and windows until they urged him to drop out of the race for daring to run against a Somali contender. Other recent electees, such as, oh, by the way, when they were having their victory party, victory speech, the entire event was in Somali. They didn't speak English at all. They didn't have to, because the Somali neighborhood was so thick that they didn't need to translate anything into English. Other recent electees, such as East Orange County City Councilman Mustafa Al-Mutazim Brent, have weaponized identity politics and taken a militant tone. Brent said that white America has been at war with black America since 1619, and that President Trump should be executed rather than impeached. Yeah, this is the kind of language. Although Johnson Harrell won't be around to stump for her Islamic patrons because she's going to be in prison, a growing coalition of like-minded Muslim lawmakers stand ready to advance the same agenda. There are more right behind her. For now, they seem to be content to work in partnership with the left and within America's democratic institutions to effect change. Look at Ilhan Omar. I'm glad you brought that up. Ilhan Omar is a sitting congresswoman. That's significantly more powerful than a city council person. Much more powerful than, being in a state legislature. She's immune. As long as she's on the House floor, she could say anything she wants. As long as she is a, quote, woman of color with, I don't even know who selects those things that go on her head, but, they're stylish. As long as she's out there doing that, no one's going to touch her. Everyone's afraid of her because of the media being right on top of anything that would even smack of anti-woman or anti-color or anti-foreign citizen. And so I often say that the congresswoman from Somalia is recognized. As their influence grows, let us not be surprised to see them jettison their progressive ideals and revert to regressive, fundamentalist principles. Just like Ilhan Omar. When she was running, she was smooth. She was like an imam, only female. Once she got into office, she became a terrorist. What principles are the focus of CARE? Who uses the river of cash flowing in America's nonprofit world to float their warships right into our neighborhoods? While they drape themselves in the mantle of civility, the CARE Brigade speaks viciously and cavalierly about their enemies. Omar says Trump is not human. On an Arab American talk show, she mocked a college professor who treated terrorist organizations Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah with gravity. She cackled at how he named them with a sternness in his voice and questioned why the word Army and America were not uttered with equal contempt. I can hear the ululations of agreement at the CARE banquet now. Let's not kid ourselves about these exploiters and sowers of division now, shall we? They thrive on violence, whether Muslims are the victims or the perpetrators. CARE operatives are first to claim systemic oppression and fear of a backlash if bloodthirsty Islamic jihadists slay innocent Americans. It's always our fault. It's always our responsibility to curtail our speech, to give up our gun rights, to get rid of our dogs, undergo sensitivity training, accept inflated statistics about the hate crimes, and apologize for everything. CARE wants to shut up its critics in the name of stopping the hate because it doesn't want us talking about its dirty, dangerous deeds. Never forget, Earth Explorers, the federal government designated CARE an unindicted terror co-conspirator in 2007 in the prosecution of the Holy Land Foundation and others for providing support to violent Hamas jihadists. Investigators tied CARE's founders to the Islamic Association for Palestine, founded by a senior Hamas jihadist, to serve as the terrorist group's public relations and recruitment arm in America. The Holy Land Foundation, a terror financing charity, provided seed money for CARE's Beltway office. Never forget, CARE is a designated terror organization in the United Arab Emirates. Never forget, federal law enforcement investigators banned interactions with CARE to prevent CARE from publicly exploiting such contacts with the FBI. And don't forget, Ghassan Elashi, a founding board member of CARE's Texas chapter, was convicted of money laundering for Hamas terrorism. Don't forget, CARE officials in California rushed in front of cameras after the San Bernardino jihad attack in 2015 to blame American foreign policy instead of the killers. And don't forget, last summer, CARE stoked a fake hate crime perpetrated by an Odessa, Texas waiter who falsely claimed he received a customer's receipt with the message, "We don't tip terrorists." Don't forget, CARE disseminated the fake claims of a deranged Muslim New York teenager who lied about having her hijab ripped off by Trump supporters. You remember that? Never forget, CARE helped manufacture the clock boy. Never forget, CARE has flexed its censorship muscle by squelching critics of Somalia-based jihad group Al-Shabaab in Minnesota. Never forget, CARE works every day to silence Muslim reformers. They call them apostates. They hate Christians, Jews, infidels, infidel scholars, border security advocates, anti-Sharia activists, and investigative independent journalists on college campuses. TV airwaves and the internet to prevent us from exposing the truth about Islamic supremacy. And that's why I buried this story an hour into my program, because the AI is out there listening to everything that we say. In the first hour, we can talk about something nice. In the second hour, the AI has already given up, and they're not going to go in this deep, but I wanted to leave that with you because you need to hear it. The next story I have, I've got about 2 minutes left in this, and I don't have enough time to get all the way through this, but I can get it started because I want to lay the groundwork here for the new American Civil War. Now, I've been giving you Civil War updates for about a year now, and if you go back and listen to them and see how systematically this is being put together and what it means, we don't think much about it. We go to work, we gas up, we go down to the Minute Mart and we get our gas and we get our coffee, and we say hi to one another, and we're diverse neighborhoods, and we never think about this kind of stuff. We don't think about Civil War. Civil War was, back in the 1860s. We don't think about that kind of stuff. But when you look at the anger and you look at the vitriol that the leadership in the Democrat Party has pointed at America. They're not impeaching Donald Trump. They're impeaching you. They're impeaching 80 million Americans. I know 63 million, but that was in 2016. Now we're up to 80 million, maybe 90 million. You cannot impeach a country. You can't impeach a candidate and do a do-over for the election just because you don't like the outcome. Well, actually, your bosses don't like the outcome. You can't do that. But we'll see what happens on Wednesday. This is Sunday. We got 3 days to go, and then they're going to have this vote. My guess is they're probably going to vote to impeach President Trump. And then we have a constitutional crisis on our hands. We'll take a quick break, 3 minutes. I don't know, I could probably keep talking because the news has not been playing all night. It's good for me because I don't really like listening to it anyway, and I don't like you hearing it. So we'll just continue on until the 1 minute mark. They're probably going to cut me off in 5 seconds. So we'll see you in 3 minutes. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with TV so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear right here. Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
All right. We're back. Listen, if you're going to be in the New York area, specifically Hamilton, I think in New Jersey, I am going to be speaking at the Hilton Garden Inn on January 4th. And you don't want to miss that. If you're in the area, just make the drive over there. It's only $20. And you can see me speak there. We'll be there at about 2:30 in the afternoon. So brave the snow on Saturday the 4th and come out and see me speak. Also, you need to go to my website, brooksagnew.com, and click on the Success Mentoring link. You'll see it there on the menu bar. When you do, you're going to see a presentation. It's called Remembering the Future. There's a couple of videos in there that you can watch for free. This is designed to teach you how to master things in your life so that you can become more successful. Now, there are a lot of people out there doing this, rev up your life or, word salad, a bunch of word salad. But none of those people have the experience that I have. 30 years in industry consulting with the Fortune 500. I'm a Six Sigma Master Black Belt. I have degrees in chemistry, physics, mathematics. I'm going to teach you things that will help you not only start your own business, but become independent of yourself. Choose your own life. Do what you want to do. Be what you want to be. And it's 5.5 hours. And I originally had this going on Eventbrite. You can see the link there, and it's easy to do. I have cities set up in there, Seattle and Charlotte, and also Phoenix and in Auckland, New Zealand. Originally wanted to do this as a live event. Of course, you got to get about 30 people at each one of these events to make it financially feasible, and we're not getting that. So what I'm thinking about doing is turning these into webinars. It's a little bit more work, but it's going to be very satisfying. You can sit at home in your pajamas and in the comfort of your own home, and I'll teach you that way. I like to do it a little bit better face-to-face because there are techniques that I can teach you to breathe, to write in a journal, and we're going to cover that in the next segment. And there are things that you can do to aim your life in the right direction. But if you go and you sign up, it's the best $47 you're going to spend on yourself ever. And I just, if you're not happy with it, I'll be happy to give your money back. But I guarantee you, you're going to be overjoyed with the value that you get. It's about a $297 value for $47. All right, let's move on with the program here. We're talking about the new American Civil War. I originally wrote a book in 2012. It was called Alienated Nation, A New Path to Liberty. It was the book that it went to #1 on Amazon, and it was the book that kind of kicked off what we now call the Convention of States. The Convention of States movement is an Article 5 convention, an Article 5 in the Constitution. It allows states to correct a runaway federal government because the Founding Fathers they feared one thing over everything else. They didn't really fear a foreign country coming in and trying to take us over because they knew we could fight. What they really feared is that our country would be taken over from the inside, that the federal government would become too large. Most of the Federalist Papers, most of the research that was done in the early days of the Republic feared one thing. No, they didn't fear a runaway president. That can be easily fixed. What they feared was a runaway Congress. What they feared was Congress would become a career. Congress would become a group of royals. And what they would do is they would basically pass down their royal seat to family lines. And that's exactly what we're seeing. What we're seeing is a corrupt Congress. And this small group of individuals is formidable because they have the ability to write laws. And if you have the ability to write laws, you have the ability to bring a nation to its knees. And you can, in effect, you can force the other two branches to heel. You can force the executive branch and you can force the judiciary to heel. All you have to do is write the laws, and eventually you'll win. And that's exactly what we see happening. By the way, Rob, thanks very much for the comments. I don't really want to talk about that right now. We can talk about it in another program, but I don't want to talk about the bombing of the USS Liberty because it's a distraction from what we're trying to accomplish here tonight. I'm trying to stay focused on what's happening in current events. I'm not trying to stir up conflict where it's been resolved. This week, 23 radical Democrats abused the power of their congressional office in a move designed to overthrow the 2016 presidential election. They went through everything they could find over the last 3 years to try to fabricate a crime that President Donald Trump may have committed. They found nothing. They finally had to fabricate the charges itself. 2 articles. One is for abuse of power. The other is for obstruction of Congress. By the way, neither one of these is a crime. Neither one of these is a crime. Everyone is expected to obstruct Congress. Everybody is expected to obstruct Congress. We are exonerated since 1787, and that's the way it is. You have to prove guilt. We do not have to prove innocence. These are not crimes, and they're certainly not misdemeanors. They put on their hate show with the best script writers in the business, and they rehearsed. Days and days and days they rehearsed. No one is buying a ticket. But that doesn't matter, because these 23 Democrats have the authority to call heavy breathing an impeachable offense. Now, the thing that everyone can plainly see is that the 23 radical Democrats are no match for 80 million Trump supporters. In fact, there is no historical voting body in history that can withstand 80 million Americans, no matter. It looks as if they work it right, Americans will not get a chance to vote for Donald Trump for president. In fact, they may succeed in going back in time and making it as though the election in 2016 never even happened. Do you like that? Apparently not. You're deeply concerned about the future of our country to the point that you believe it might break out into an all-out violent melee. And you're certainly not alone. A new national poll has found that upwards of 70%, that's big, 70% of Americans are now fully convinced that the formerly United States of America are on the brink of a second civil war. When asked to state whether they agreed or disagreed with the statement, a shocking 84% of people polled said they agreed. This is up from 83% of the people who were asked the same question back in April of this year. Those surveyed were also asked if they agreed or disagreed with this statement, and I quote, "I'm tired of leaders compromising my values and ideals. I want leaders who will stand up to the other side," to which 84% said they agreed. And this is up from 79% back in April. That was a high number. Question after question about the state of unity and solidarity in the United States today reveals one thing that's on everyone's minds. There's a very strong unity forming that no one thought they would ever see in modern times. Polls are beginning to show that the normally nonviolent, totally tolerant, sleepy, frisbee-throwing American is getting pissed at the Democrats, who are appearing not to be joking anymore. In other words, where we once thought it was just some stupid conspiracy theory that there's a group of socialist radicals trying to take over the government, we are now balling up our fists. The majority of Americans believe that we are 2/3 of the way to being on the edge of civil war. That's Mo Elithy, Executive Director of Georgetown University's Institute of Politics and Public Service, which conducted the poll. Did you get that? 2/3. That is a place that is very dry. That's a place that's very flammable right now. It's a place where Americans don't come very often. But when we do, we get very seriously dangerous. Dubbed the Civility Poll, this project by Georgetown aims to keep a pulse on the state of civil relations in America in 2019. With the constant influx of foreigners from every crevice of the planet, many of them illegal, it's no wonder that American society is breaking down due to a lack of a common culture. And it's not the fact they are foreigners. It is the fact that it now appears they were brought here to fight this war. They were brought here under orders of the Democrats to start a war. Not only that, but the carefully crafted political divide is also driving a massive and probably irreversible wedge between people on the left and right sides of the political spectrum. They have sifted the melting pot and picked out every component of America and inducted them into their victim party. As it turns out, nearly every person polled said they were frustrated with the Democrats lying 5 minutes at a time in hearing after hearing after hearing. The trillion-dollar media empire streams propaganda at us and shames our prayers and anthems and our flag into something that needs to be destroyed to make the weather suddenly better. Yes. Did you hear that? White skin is evil, and the weather is shit because the Star-Spangled Banner. Is that mean enough? Well, it's true. We have backed up, and we have backed up. And now, vast majority of Americans are unwilling to compromise any further. And why should they? Seeing as how compromise now means teaching innocent children that there's no such thing as gender, and you wonder why I'm a homophobe? Many people are also frustrated with President Trump, including people who voted for him. Why? Because he ran on 2 major platforms: build the wall and drain the swamp. He has done neither of those, but now we know why. Now his popularity is higher in this point of a presidency than anyone ever. And that pisses off the socialists to no end. They're so mad now that they have scripted the impeachment show, season 4, and they controlled it all the way. It's as though the Republicans didn't even show up for the table read. There's one thing that most Americans seem to be in agreement on: the divide between the Americans and the Democrats continues to grow, with no end in sight. Well, I say that, but that's not really true, now is it? What they see is that today there is a peace for one reason and one reason only. The Democrats are afraid of us. They are afraid of the armed American. If they weren't, it would already be over with the vote they took on Friday the 13th. Trump would be gone, and you wouldn't have to worry about the 2020 election. That would be decided for you, just as the impeachment show was decided Friday. That's my new Civil War, American Civil War update. Oh, there's more. There's more. Now I want to talk a little bit about the global climate caper. There's a small group of super elite globalists, and they want everything. They always have. They have for years now tasked the sextile media empire to craft a narrative. I know that's a word that gets overused, but hear me out. The basic theme is this: the weather will get better when the red, white, and blue is gone. I know, that sounds silly, but globalists see an enormous payday in this strategy. America pays, and they rule. Now we have been keeping you aware of this plan. It unravels when the people are awakened. Looks like our message is working. United Nations negotiators expressed disbelief and then anger today as COP25 climate talks in Madrid, Spain, looked set to end with no agreement on anything of substance. The only unanimous decision reached by the 25,000 delegates from all over the world was the backing for another identical conference in 12 months' time to revisit the agenda in a program that first started in 1991. In other words, the food and drinks are great down at the UN cafeteria. Let's plan another meeting. Negotiators from the Alliance of Small Island States pointed the finger of blame at Australia and the United States, as well as Brazil and Japan, for resisting the call for financial reparations to be sent to victims of climate change, as well as other major industrial nations which see no reason to support UN global climate tax demands. The U.S. in particular was blamed for refusing to agree to developing countries. You know what a developing country is, don't you? What? My cat just said it. An S-hole. We can't say that on the radio. Oh, third world. That's better. Stupid cat. Gosh, anybody want a feckless cat? Sits over there in the chair trying to give me advice in my right ear. The U.S. in particular was blamed for refusing to agree to developing countries' demands for money under what is known in UN jargon as the Warsaw International Mechanism. America did point out no country in the world gives more to humanitarian causes than we do, a U.S. State Department official said. The U.S. government is the largest humanitarian donor in the world. The WIM should be a constructive space to catalyze action on the wide range of loss and damage issues. By the way, a catalyst is an agent that helps reactions take place at lower temperatures without actually being consumed in the reaction. Usually it is in the form of a precious metal. But if you have ever attended anything UN, you will see right away that they are all a giant shakedown. They will never have an army, so they use resolutions and blackmail to get their way. They hold the world hostage to their grand plan of getting all the money without actually having to do anything for it. The annual climate marathon picked up the pace by calling all millennials to dress alike to show solidarity that they have been sold in a climate emergency. Yeah. Let's see. They decided to call themselves, I love this, the Extinction Rebellion. Have you heard this? The Extinction Rebellion? I'm sorry to say, kids, the rebellion is the good guys. The empire is the bad guys. You are being duped with free t-shirts, face paint, burgers, and fries. The climate sexathon was supposed to conclude on Friday, but is dragged on with ministers mired in multiple disputes over implementing the 2015 Paris deal. You remember, the one America withdrew from under the leadership of President Donald Trump, and where Nancy Pelosi stood and told them to pay no attention to the imposter in the White House. "We're in," she told the cheering crowds. "No, Nancy, we're out." UN Chief Antonio Guterres exhorted major world economies on Wednesday to signal more ambitious commitments to cut greenhouse emissions and obey the globalist call for change. He said, "We need to have the big emitters understanding that their role is essential because if the big emitters fail, everything we fail," Guterres told Reuters in an interview. "If we just go on as we are doomed," he said. Guterres urged major emitters to send a clear signal that they are ready to increase their ambition next year and hopefully commit to net zero carbon emissions by 2050, seen as vital to keeping global temperatures within manageable levels. Of course, he isn't really talking about the major emitters. Not really. He's not talking about India. He's not talking about China. He's not talking about Africa. No. He's only talking about America. We are the ones with clean water, clean air, and regular waste management. We are also the ones with a capitalist economy based on service to others, not service to the government. History cannot escape that my generation will betray our children and grandchildren, he said. He's a former Portuguese prime minister who made climate a signature issue since taking over as UN Secretary General in early 2017. He has become one of the world's wealthiest men through weather warfare. Every time it snows, he gets paid. Every time it stops raining or rains too much, he gets paid. Every time the wind blows, he gets paid. Whose fault is the weather anyway? Why? Donald Trump, of course. By the way, the next UN Climate Summit is set down for December 2020 in Glasgow, Scotland. I might just go, just to have some fun. All right, I like this next section. I like economic science. You know, mathematics and when you develop a formula and then you inject other formulas into it to kind of expand the terms of the equation, you begin to see relationships. It's not so much solving for what is X or what is Y or, you know, what does this line look like. It's looking at the relationships between things. When this goes up, that goes down. When this gets small, that gets big. The relationships are very interesting. Yes, I know, weather manipulation money. It's not so much weather manipulation, okay? That can be done. It probably is being done. But it is the money surrounding the weather that's the manipulation. That's what's being done. Trust me, the UN doesn't give a rat's behind whether it rains or whether it snows or whether the ocean stays within its bounds. It's meaningless to them. In fact, they often can be heard saying that they wish the earth would rise up against mankind and smack it down to a much smaller, more manageable population. One, of course, in which they survive, but you know what I'm saying. No, they don't care about that. All they care about is the money. That's all they care about. They want carbon to be dollars because they know when we drive our cars, we could just send them a little money and life will be good. We'll make the weather better. The point is, the weather is not affected by mankind. It isn't. We pollute, of course, but the weather that we're going through right now, it comes from the sun. It comes from the sun. This climate change that we're experiencing, they're going through exactly the same thing on Mars, exactly the same thing on Venus. And Saturn. Yeah, its atmospheric pressure has changed quite a bit in the last 30 years. We don't have anything to do with those planets. We don't have anything to do with this one either when it comes to the weather. Earth is going to do what the Earth is going to do because we're 93 million miles away from that. And that's that. That's the science of it. So I want to talk a little bit about economic science, and you'll find this fascinating because we already have had this happen once in our society, and it didn't go so well for us. But it can go well for you if you position yourself correctly. We'll take a quick 3-minute break, and we will come back at it. Liquidity is draining away. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
Impeachment, punch and counterpunch. Afghanistan drawdown. I'm Evan Haining. The fireworks around the upcoming vote on whether to impeach President Trump continue this weekend. Democratic Representative Jeff Van Drew says his opposition to impeachment is forcing him to become a Republican. Correspondent Jeremy Diamond reports his staffers say that decision is forcing them to quit working for him.
We do have this letter now from 5 staff members in Congressman Van Drew's office who are resigning in the wake of Van Drew, as they say, quote, joining the ranks of the Republican Party led by Donald Trump.
If the House votes for impeachment Wednesday, as expected, the president will be tried in the Senate. On ABC's This Week, Republican Senator Ted Cruz said Trump would get a fair trial there.
What we've seen in the House was a partisan show trial. It was one-sided. They didn't allow the White House to cross-examine the witnesses. They didn't allow the Republicans, the minority, to call any witnesses.
The White House is expected to pull more troops from the Middle East. Here's correspondent Ryan Brown.
The administration is moving to announce a withdrawal from Afghanistan of about 4,000 troops. Now, they're currently about 12 to 13,000 troops in Afghanistan performing a variety of missions.
In Wyoming and other points west, some temperatures are in the single digits right now. National Weather Service meteorologist Richard Bond says winter weather could make for a nasty commute on the East Coast tomorrow, but skiers in Colorado may enjoy these conditions.
Some of the mountains up around Breckenridge and Silverthorne, some of the more tourist and ski areas, they're reporting close to 2 to 3 feet of snow. Get a little bit closer in the lower elevations near some of the population centers. Still, some of the amounts have been ranging about 6 to 8, maybe even some 12-inch amounts.
Snow caused a 5-vehicle crash on I-70 in Kansas. I'm Evan Haining.
right. Welcome back. Final hour, X Squared Radio, coming to you live from the America Free Radio studios in an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. We are also simulcasting live on Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is an audio feed. You can get to it by going to iHeart, to TuneIn, to Orange Radio. There are also phone numbers that you can call to listen to it if you're out shopping and don't have a YouTube feed. And it goes 24 hours a day, so you can always find something live, but you can always get to the archives. There are hundreds of excellent programs for X Squared Radio at tfrlive.com/X2 Radio. I also put my notes in there. So each and every program that's live has a set of notes with it. Sometimes 30 pages, 40, 50 pages of notes that I use to put the programs together. Sometimes people like to do their own research or go deeper than I went reading some of these things and writing some of these things. And you can put all that together and really open your mind and keep up. So something that happens in economics as mathematics and statistics are applied, we begin to see trends. We begin to see things move. We didn't have all of these tools available to us back in the early 20th century. And so we were taken by surprise by the large money managers. I find the whole concept of cash, actually currency, very fascinating. You turn your grindstone and you make something that sells to someone with money who wants your widget. Now you can trade that cash for literally anything you desire. Sounds simple enough. A simple piece of paper covered in talismans is trusted as a promise to pay. I'm okay with that. The real value is in front of your grindstone and being fashioned by your skills. The real value is the same thing that your customer did on his farm or in his mill or his factory. Somehow the system of exchange went from being a simple system of exchange to the actual source of value. And the whole idea, I think, needs to be spaced. Remember the old train robbers who stole the town's payroll? The pirates who took the goods and slaves at sea? Well, something strange like that is going on right now. Remember I told you that the regional banks could not meet the requirements for liquid cash on hand to back the level of loans they had made. They got to keep 10% in liquidity, right? When the bank closes at night, regulators say you got to have $1 million in loans. You have to have $100,000 in cash on hand. You've got to have the money on hand. If you don't have the cash, then they can liquidate your bank, and nobody wants to go out of business. And so for decades, what has happened is these banks go to another bank and they borrow the cash at the end of the day and they hold it overnight to meet the requirements. And the next day they just pay it back. But then the big banks actually stopped loaning to the regional banks. That's what happened this year. Panic set in. And they began going to the overnight window at the Fed for cash to make it through the night. And the central banks were injecting about $100 billion each month in electronic money to crush volatility and ramp the markets. And then it went to $100 billion a day. Yeah, I said a day. Now, at some point, alarm bells have to go off here. That's how close to the edge we get when the banks close every night. And here's a strange part. A similar amount in hard physical currency and precious metals is literally disappearing. It's disappearing. It's being pirated. Take gold. Goldman Sachs recently laid out the case for gold, saying, and I quote, "Gold's strategic case still strong," close quote. Well, one reason for this is that the same central banks that are full tilt printing cash have also been splurging on gold. And as a result of geopolitical uncertainty, there has been a record surge in gold demand by central banks themselves. Even Goldman notes, quote, CBs globally have been buying gold at a very strong pace, and 2019 looks to be a record year for CB gold purchases, with our target of 750 tons combined purchases likely to be met, close quote. Now, pay close attention, because this is why X Squared Radio works the way that it does. We bring the past and the future together, and we make it into this formula, X Squared, right? Anything put into X Squared comes out positive, so listen closely. This is exactly the same strategy used in 1928 to crash the money supply in 1929. It was done specifically to crush Hoover's roaring economy. He was a Republican whose first term was a barn burner. Everyone was making money. The whole world was making money. The central banks crushed the world overnight by turning all the cash into gold and then packing the gold away so no one could get it but them. Remember, Roosevelt made private gold ownership illegal. There's an even more bizarre discovery by Goldman. There's been a whopping 1,200 tons, $57 billion of unexplained gold flows in just 3 years. The same 3 years that Donald Trump's been president. As Goldman's Mikhail Sprogis writes, rising political risk together with negative European rates may be an important reason behind the large share of unaccounted gold investment over the past several years. I think you'll understand my full metal logic right here. Since 2016, right after the election of Donald Trump, vaulted gold stocks, these are stocks that are purchased, but they're not traded anymore. They're put in a vault. They're put in the ship's hold. They're put in the basement. They're taken off the market. Vaulted gold stocks built in the UK and Switzerland, which is calculated as implied cumulative total net imports minus transparent ETF gold stocks. By the way, ETF, just not to use a term that confuses people, it means exchange traded fund. Exchange traded fund, okay? It's the tradable bullion, not the metal itself. In other words, someone was planning to smash Trump's economy from the moment he was elected. They may have been trying to smash the economy even if Hillary was elected. It was a plan. And another remarkable observation, or rather a lack thereof, one can see that since the end of 2016, you know, right after the election, before Donald Trump was inaugurated, the implied build in non-transparent gold investment has been much larger than the build in visible gold ETFs. This is consistent with reports that vault demand globally is surging. You get it? They're vaulting. They're putting it in vaults where you can't get to it. In fact, governments can't get to it. Political risks, in my view, help explain this. Because if an individual is trying to minimize the risks of sanctions or wealth taxes, have you heard that thrown around? Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, then buying physical gold bars and storing them in a vault where it is much more difficult for governments to reach them, it makes a lot of sense. You can defend the vault with guns. You can't defend the ETF. But know this, the ETF doesn't exist without the physical metal to back it up. Short the gold and the ETF evaporates like a fart in a whirlwind. Just ask Eric Swalwell. And what do you do to protect yourself from being shorted? You hedge. You hedge. And hedges by global high net worth individuals is exactly what is happening. They are moving billions against tail economic and political risk scenarios in which they do not want to have any financial entity intermediating their gold positions due to the counterparty risk involved. In other words, Goldman points out that just over the past 3 years, there have been tens of billions in gold flows which have mysteriously and inexplicably just disappeared from the official record, yet which are most certainly taking place behind the scenes as the world's top 1% brace for a major shock. It's in the vault, their vault. But it's not just gold that's disappearing. According to the Wall Street Journal, so is the world's cold, hard cash. Now you know why all those factory buildings are empty where you live. Now you know why we are at the lowest level of business startups in American history. There's no money. Oh, we're making it. But someone or something is packing it away. They're vacuuming it out of your town. They're sucking it out of your city. And they're pulling it into a central place. And that cash is going away. And as if that wasn't enough, you have another source. Smart people like me and you, we're burying it. The Swiss might be hiding it. The Germans are probably hoarding every penny they have had, been able to steal from NATO and America for decades. They don't want to pay their fair share because they want to survive when the sword of Damocles falls on America. Instead, while banks are printing more banknotes than ever, they're being stacked into envelopes and mailed out of the country. The banks will never see that money. It's gone forever, and it didn't buy anything. It never got used because it's being hoarded by human traffickers. You think drugs is a big market? Try $300 billion a year, plus another $300 billion a year in cash remittances being stolen every single year. We do know one thing. Of the $1.7 trillion in cash circulation in 2018, which, by the way, was up from $1.2 trillion 5 years prior. Yeah, think about that. $500 billion more dollars. The vast majority is offshore, where it is quickly and quietly it disappears as the world's second best physical store value after gold, of course. I'm not kidding. After gold, this money smuggling is the number one source of cash. A Fed economist, Ruth Judson, wrote in 2017, and this is going to blow you away, 60% of all U.S. currency and about 75% of $100 bills had left the country by the end of 2016. It was gone. For a total of about $900 billion in U.S. cash. And it's kept offshore. It's never coming back. Guess who shipped it? Billionaires? Nope. Undocumented foreigners living and working inside the USA. That's who. 30 million people sending $10,000 a year out of the country is $300 billion in cash. This money is being paid to cartels who own governments. If it was not for this money, the socialists wouldn't even exist. To be sure, there is the criminal element, as anyone who has watched a documentary on Pablo Escobar knows. The Colombian drug kingpin buried tens of billions of dollars in the ground for safekeeping. Pablo was earning so much each year we would write off 10% of the money, or about $2.1 billion, because the rats would eat it in storage, or it would be damaged by water or just lost. As such, dollar bills are often vital grease for criminal gangs and tax cheats. Physical cash is also popular with preppers and collectors who worry about a future collapse of the financial system. But these two groups, far too small to explain the wholesale loss of cash. Oh, trust me, they'll get the blame. Bankers aren't just hunting down all this missing cash to satisfy their own curiosity. If central banks don't know how much cash is out there, they could print too much money. They would risk inflation. And then there are bizarre incidents such as these. This is how we know this is happening. In September, here we go. Construction workers recently dug up an estimated $140,000 buried in packages at a site on Australia's Gold Coast, prompting a police search to find the trove's owner. Pirates. In September, a court in Germany ruled on a case brought by a man who stuffed more than 500,000 euros in a faulty boiler, only to see it incinerated when a friend made a fix on a cold day while he was on vacation. The man sued his friend for the value of the lost banknotes plus interest. He lost. People hide their money everywhere, said Sven Bertelmann, head of the Bundesbank's National Analysis Center in Mainz, Germany. Sometimes banknotes are buried in the garden where they start decomposing, or hidden in attics where they are used by mice for building nests. It happens again and again that people keep money in an envelope and then they shred it by mistake, said Bertelmann. We pick up the banknotes with tweezers and then start to put them together like a jigsaw puzzle. Few are as perplexed by the fate of the missing cash as the German central bank. According to the Bundesbank, more than 150 billion euros are being hoarded somewhere in Germany. This has led the European Central Bank and others to ask for the public for help. Who has the money? Who is hoarding the cash? But the money's clearly somewhere. Some stunning facts here. Australia's central bank says its best guess is that only around a quarter of the banknotes in circulation are used for everyday transactions. Up to 8% of cash is used in the shadow economy. These are people that work for cash, mow lawns, do nails, that kind of stuff. While as much as 10% could have been lost. That's 7.6 billion Australian dollars, or about 5.2 American, missing at the beach or in couch cushions, or simply lost in a boating accident to avoid the taxman until the rainy days arrive. The biggest use of cash is as a store of wealth in safes under beds, at the back of cupboards, both here in Australia or elsewhere and around the world. And he's right, but it's still, this is a small amount. There's a financial crisis looming, everyone feels, and it's getting closer by the day. For some countries, such as New Zealand, making money disappear is becoming a national pastime. Christian Hawkesby of the Reserve Bank of New Zealand wonders where all the cash has gone. As the Wall Street Journal concludes, around a third of New Zealand's new banknotes headed overseas in 2017, up from 6% 4 years earlier. That happened around the time that tourism overtook dairy as the country's main export money spinner, leading officials to speculate on the role played by currency exchanges, especially in Asia. Well, I can't explain exactly where the money's going, but I can explain why. And I can tell you that if the money supply is collapsed, we'll be pushed into another depression, specifically for the purposes of ruining the Trump economy. Somebody told me the other day, oh yeah, but we're due an adjustment. Yes, we are due an adjustment. This is the adjustment. The American economy had been shorted for almost 20 years behind this stupid war on terrorism. You might as well have had a war on bad breath or taco sauce. It's meaningless, a war on terrorism. And then all the while, for years and years, decades, we could have wiped these terrorists out and been done with it. No, we fortified them. We armed them. We financed them. They didn't have airplanes. They didn't have tanks. They barely had laptops. And yet somehow they were winning city after city after city. Why? Because the U.S. State Department under Hillary Clinton was organizing it. They were funding it. They were giving them intelligence. They were giving them new trucks and uniforms and all kinds of stuff. Why? Because they were accomplishing the goals of the globalists. They took out Gaddafi. They were going to take out Bashar al-Assad. They were going to take out these leaders so they could take the resources and become this global powerhouse that could not be stopped. But they got stopped. They got stopped. And now they're trying everything they can do, including the impeachment show, to try to undo it. I don't think it's going to work. I think the American people have been listening to programs like mine, and they're waking up. And this year, they're taking action. And this is what we need to do if we're going to stay alive. All right, let's talk a little bit about sage. I don't mean an old guy that knows a lot. Sage, you know, the leaf. The burning of sage has long been a spiritual ritual. But new research shows it can have more benefits than you might think. The research shows that burning sage, also referred to as smudging, in a room for an hour, it actually reduced airborne bacteria by 94%. How about that? So you could actually, you know, bless a room, and the people in the room would not get sick, or they would be healed, because the airborne bacteria in the room would be killed off, sort of sterilizing the room. It also showed that the room stayed almost entirely bacteria-free for 24 hours. Some strains of harmful bacteria could not be detected for up to 30 days. Sage user Natalie Allery says she noticed the difference when she burns sage. If one of my children gets sick, we are not all getting sick. It seems to at least eliminate some of it once it is already in our house. And it does lift the energy. You could feel inside you that there is something that just needs to be done, and opening the windows just isn't enough. Crystal Rock is a local store that sells sage. Fargo store manager Susan Anderson says when people try it out, they keep coming back. They come, they get the sage, they come back to get more sage, and they give reports about how much better they feel and how much lighter it feels. Allery adds, it's like we do the best that we can to explain to them, but it's once they feel it and see it and go through that experience, that's what's keeping them coming back. And yes, that really works. According to Holistic Health's website, other benefits of burning sage include repelling insects. That's a great one. Could use that here in North Carolina in the summertime. Improving mood, and reducing stress and anxiety, and improving intuition. It's also been linked to helping with chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and even cancer. Pretty interesting how the old ways sometimes come through to really protect us, and show us, and enlighten us. Also, what happened this week in the news, and this is really quite stunning, is this Brexit vote. Did you see that? I mean, this week in a historic election, the UK Conservative Party celebrated its most sweeping victory since Margaret Thatcher, the original Eurosceptic, won the election for Prime Minister in 1987. The election had been regarded as particularly momentous given the UK's recent struggles to bring the much-debated Brexit to fruition. They voted for it, And then, it just got wrapped up in red tape and it couldn't go anywhere and no one could decide. Everything was so close and nobody could win a majority because they have so many parties over there. You have to win a majority to be able to do anything. And if you don't, you can't do anything. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the final segment. And then we'll wrap it up. I got some interesting stuff on making a future code, which I think you'll find interesting. X Squared Radio is live every Wednesday and Sunday at 8 p.m. We're on 2 different networks, but we always try to do a YouTube live component. So we're here every week, and Wednesday and Sunday at 8 p.m. Make sure to click that little bell after you subscribe so that you get the notification when we're live, and then you can keep up with this stuff, and you can flood the chat room like you're doing right now with all this great pontification. We'll take a quick break. Be right back after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
Discover the extraordinary powers of intuitive healing with pain transmutation, a method of holistic healing for the human soul, body, mind, and emotions. If you are looking for answers and a deep understanding of how to help yourself and the people around you to live a happier, healthier life, this is the right place for you. Learn how to read your soul's history in the Akashic Records, remove negative energy attachments from your astral body, and start the process of inner and outer pain transmutation. Join Pain Transmutation Community to get started on the path of intuitive healing. Change your energetic state, manifest new and exciting experiences, re-energize your life, and build inspiring connections with others in our community.
Hey everyone, it's Mark Sargent from Strange World, broadcasting live every Tuesday evening, 10 to 12 Eastern, 7 to 9 Pacific, right here on True Frequency Radio. Strange World covers a wide range of topics, from enclosed world theory to lunar waves to the end of the world in film. It's basically doomsday with a silver lining. With the audience as my co-host, we take an optimistic approach to all things conspiracy and promote confidence, hope, and humor whenever possible. If there's a topic you want us to cover or a guest you would like to see interviewed, please email me at msargent23@comcast.net. So please join me and tell your friends about Truth Frequency Radio, the leader in real radio programming, bringing you quality, cutting-edge broadcasts from around the world.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I you to come with. Tell me, will you wait?
Well, you don't have to wait for me forever. You can just wait till Wednesday, wait till Sunday, and then you can have more. And you can communicate with me through the YouTube chat room or the TFR Live chat room. And I appreciate all the comments. Lots of people burning sage out there. This is really cool. I like that a lot. Yes, don't forget to turn your notification bell on, and then you'll be notified when we go live. Listen, the most important thing to remember about this this Brexit vote is it was not just anomalous. It was really Brits coming to a point of focus that they wanted their island back. They were tired of Brussels overriding their laws and their parliament. They were tired of having immigrants forced upon them by the European Union. Britain was and is a global economic powerhouse, and they were being drained to support the globalist efforts of Brussels and the globalists. And all around the world, people are rebelling against this, and they proved it in Britain this week with the Brexit vote. The crushing defeat of Corbyn, while invigorating the project of Western democracy, the biggest thing that we take away from this is it's a type and a shadow. It's a warning for the American left, who continues to toy with the policies espoused by these globalists. If the left's meltdown this week in response to Trump's executive order protecting, say, Jewish college students is any indication, there doesn't seem to be much consensus on the left regarding what is more important, hating Trump or combating anti-Semitism. They hate Trump worse. So interesting to watch that election unfold. 216 votes is what it's going to take to impeach Donald Trump. I would not like to see it happen, because it is going to create a constitutional crisis, because we will have an impeached president on the ballot. We've never had that before. When Andrew Johnson was impeached, he didn't win the nomination of his party. He wasn't on the ballot. Every other president that's been impeached was impeached in office. Nixon resigned, probably didn't have to, but he did. Clinton served out his presidency. In fact, it made him even more popular. But we've never had an impeached president on the ballot. And I can just tell you right now, we've never had a $1 trillion press empire, media empire, that is going to be focused on making sure that he is not put on the ballot. They're going to pressure states. They're going to pressure governors. They're going to pressure sanctuary cities. They're going to pressure senators. And they're going to pressure congressmen. You want to get reelected? You have to run ads. You have to run ads on public networks. Look what happened to President Trump with YouTube. President Trump's campaign bought and paid for 300 ads on YouTube. They were removed. YouTube kept the money. They kept the money, but they didn't run the ads. And that's just the beginning. You have the 6 major media moguls, and you have Google, and you have Facebook, and you have Twitter that are going to be focused in making sure an impeached president does not end up on the ballot. All you have to do, folks, is ring the hell out of that phone. Starting tomorrow morning, call your Democrat congressman and tell them to vote against impeachment. We have to stop this impeachment from happening. It's not in our best interest. All right, let's talk a little bit about a future code. This is something that I talk about in my live lectures, and it is something that I will teach you how to do in the webinars if you sign up for them. All you have to do to sign up is go to brooksagnew.com, click on the Success Mentoring link, and the links will be right in there for you to sign up. It's $47. It's basically a date and a movie, and it's going to change your life. Time is not what you've been told. It is not a line through space. It is a system of measurement, and measurement is the key to technical existence. You remember the old adage about if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, technically, no, it doesn't make a sound. Einstein once commented on this idea of measurement, or in the strict sense of the word, observation. He said, "You can't tell me the moon exists just because a mouse looked at it." Well, no. You see, there is the individual reality, and then there's the average reality. We are all part of the population that makes up the average reality, but we are individual soul addresses inside that population. That is important to know. You are you, and there is no other you in this universe. And we could talk about multiverses some other time, but I want to put some tools in your hands tonight. Hang on one second. I'm going to grab something that's behind me. Take my earpieces out. Just hold on one second. Okay, I have it. The average reality is the third dimension that we are experiencing. We don't all experience the same reality, believe it or not. Two people rarely report seeing or hearing the same thing at the same time. In fact, two people are rarely moved by the same love, or the same hate, or the same musical interludes. When two people get close to doing that, we call that compatibility. Not everyone is happy with the cards they have been dealt, so to speak. 99.99% of the time, things do not turn out as planned. You ever see that? The Murphy principle, Murphy's law. I doubt any of you expected to reach this age and still be working your asses off to get through the month. And then that month turns into a year, and then a mishmash of careers. Before you know it, you're old and you haven't done anything you wanted to do. And since no one else you know has done it either, you think this is normal. And you simply wait around to die in your sleep. Well, I want to show you how to change that. I want you to do the things you always wanted to do. I want you to travel to see the places you always wanted to see. And when you get there, I want you to pause and breathe and stare and soak in the moment like a hot tub. You may never go back. You want to take it with you. So stay for a while and be late. The first thing I want to do is to stop. I want you to stop telling yourself you will never do those things because you don't have enough money. We're going to make a rule tonight. And the rule is money is no object. You got that? Money is no object. Okay, now that that's established, I'm going to teach you how to keep a journal. Mine looks like this. This is my journal. Now, my journal doesn't look like most journals. It doesn't look like anything probably that you've seen people keep. Yeah, I have drawings, and I have schematics, and I have all kinds of extra stuff, pictures, things like this. This is a journal. Now, you didn't get anything secret out of there, did you? The main thing is, a journal is a special place where only positive futures are remembered. I don't want you to worry that yours doesn't look like mine either. I design things, I hope for things, I discover things, and I write them down here. And most of all, I dream of things. In fact, I have been doing it for so long that I can design things while I'm driving. Just ask my assistant if you don't believe me. I want you to put positive things in the journal. I can teach you how to go to the future and to look around. And you'll see many things that do not exist yet. You'll see radically different conditions there. War and famine, weather changes, children that are not born yet, and even other worlds. And that is only part of the journey. I want you to take something with you when you go. I want you to take a future code. It's like a UPC code for something you want to do. If you want to go to Moscow or Athens or Budapest or someplace like that, perhaps it's Cairo or Shanghai. It could be Iowa or New York. Then I want you to sit down and I want you to set that dream code right then and there and put it in the journal. It's yours and nobody can take it. It's a placeholder. It's in the future. Remember what is around when you put it down. And then I want you to come back here in the past and record that experience in your journal. Draw it if you have to. I often do. You saw my drawings. Get a picture of that place. Tape it into the journal. And then write around the edges of it. All your thoughts. You can write sideways. You can write in the margins. That's what they're for. And I want you to learn to spot these new vibrations because you have already put energy out there in the future. This is the secret that nobody has told you. That dream code is like a beacon. It pulses ever so often, and the energy of that pulse passes through everything and time and eternity too. All the way back to the past, which is the present for you. Everything that will absorb and resonate with that pulse will begin vibrating. That thing will begin putting off its own sound because of that vibration, like strumming a guitar. You're going to learn those vibrations. You're going to learn to see and hear those vibrations. It could be a class, it could be a webinar, it could be a book to read, it could be a job interview or an email request, or even a phone message. Normally you wouldn't, but you realize that this may have some significance simply because it is sitting there in your inbox for that reason. That reason might be because of your dream code pulsing out there in the future. One of the keys to success is this journal. Next month, I'm offering a webinar in journal making for dream codes. I want you to take it. I know you will like it because we will be face to face and you can ask me questions as we go. Fair enough? Okay. Enough journal. I could spend a whole class on it. I started transferring my journal keeping skills to my lab notebooks when I started college, when I was given a challenge by one of my chemistry teachers, an organic chemistry teacher whose name was Dr. Banks. And he said he had never in his career given out an A for lab notebooks. Well, buddy, it was game on. So I turned in my lab notebook and I got an A on it. And that's where I had coined the phrase in writing in my journal, everything we do will eventually affect the universe. Do it on purpose. And later in the book, I was doing something and realized that I'd contaminated my experiment and I started over again. And I wrote in the margins, the secret to life is clean glassware and conversion factors. And the professor circled it in red and wrote beside it, "What the hell is this?" ? But see, it's those kinds of thoughts that make a lab notebook really interesting to read. Wouldn't you have loved to have read Einstein's lab notebook or Nikola Tesla's lab notebook? You can see what I'm saying. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Space Force. Real world stuff now. A recently retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Stephen L. Quast, that's Kwast, he gave a lecture last month, and it seems to further signal that the next major battlefield ain't going to be local. While military leadership rattling the space sabers is nothing new, Quast's lecture included comments that heavily hint at the possibility that the United States military and its industry partners have already developed next-generation technologies that have the potential to drastically change the aerospace field and human civilization forever. By the way, can I see by a show of hands, and maybe you can show me in the chat room, how many people are watching The Expanse on Amazon? The Expanse. Premium science fiction. Premium science fiction. If you're not watching The Expanse on Amazon, start it. Even if you're not a science fiction fan, you're going to like this. What's that question? Have I met James Gilliland? Of course I've met James Gilliland. James and I have been friends since August of 2006. I have spoken at East City Ranch, I think 5 times. And I love the guy to death. I see him at conferences now. I saw him at Contact in the Desert last May. He goes to all around the world. He goes to Australia and speaks. He's a great leader in the industry. James is a great guy. So, yes, I know James Gilliland. The question is this really posturing, or could we actually be on the verge of making science fiction a reality? And who's Stephen Quast? All right, that's a good question. According to his official United States Air Force biography, Lieutenant General Quast graduated from the United States Air Force Academy with a degree in astronautical engineering and also holds a master's degree in public policy from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Quast previously served as commander of the 47th Operations Group at Laughlin Air Force Base. I was there. Lieutenant General Quast most recently served as commander of the Air Education and Training Command at Joint Base San Antonio, but retired in August. According to some reports, Quast was prematurely relieved of his duties at the JBSA and blacklisted for promotion after speaking out on space-related issues, despite a service-wide gag order. Quast declined to comment on the reports and retired on September 1st of this year. Despite the controversy surrounding his removal from his post, some defense analysts and Lieutenant General Quast's own supporters within the armed forces were suggesting prior to his retirement that he should be appointed as commander of the Pentagon's budding Space Force. Quast has published several op-eds in recent years, pushing for the U.S. military to take on a greater role in space. Here's what he said. As a historian reflecting on the fact that throughout the history of mankind, technology has always changed world power. But the story of rejecting the new and holding and clinging to the paradigms of the past is why no civilization has ever lasted forever. And values are trumped by other values when another civilization figures out a way of finding a competitive advantage. The nature of power. You either have it and your values rule, or you do not have it and you must submit. We see that play out again and again in history, and it's playing out now. Close quote. As has been common of late, Lieutenant General Quast cites rapidly growing Chinese military and technological advances as the reason why the United States must invest heavily in the new space-based technologies. I could agree with that. I would rather see a space race like that than the competition that we see down here on the surface. We can say today we are dominant in space, but the trend lines are what you have to look at, and they will pass us in the next few years if we do not do something. They will win this race, and then they will put roadblocks up in space. Because once you get the high ground, that strategic high ground, it's curtains for anybody trying to get to that high ground behind them. Quast claims China is already building a navy in space, complete with the space-based equivalents of battleships and destroyers, which are able to maneuver and kill and communicate with dominance. And we, the United States, we're not doing it. Quast's speech centers on the thesis that the United States needs a space force in order to counter Chinese advances and win the competition over the economy of the future, and, as an extension, who sets the values of the future. I will quote again. He says, space is the navy for the 21st century economy. A networked economy that will dominate any linear terrestrial economy in the four engines of growth and dominance that change world power, transportation, information, energy, and manufacturing. Whoever gets to the new market sets the values for that market. And we could either have the market with the values of our Constitution, or we could have the values we see manifest in China. Close quote. And this is actually what we're seeing. And this is kind of what the series The Expanse is built upon. The greed and the politics and the science are all real. But in The Expanse, there are four communities. You have Earth, you have Luna, obvious, you have Mars, and then you have a kind of outcast space-dwelling race called the Belters. Now, the Belters have lived in space for so many generations that they cannot survive on planet anymore. Their bones and heart can't take gravity. They're used to living, working, fighting, mining, and doing business in space. And the Belters have developed their own dialect, so to speak. And since they're all kind of pirates anyway, a totally different breed of human, they are big risk takers, and they often pay for those risks. They also have organized crime groups called the OPA, so they can group together and be kind of quasi-unified against planets, which they call the Inners, Mars and Luna and Earth. And Earth is no longer broken into factions. What you have on Earth basically is the UN. The UN has become ultra powerful, and the Secretary General of the UN is the ultimate power on Earth. And they have a formidable army in space. So it's interesting how science fiction maps the reality of the future. So Quast argues that the scientists, engineers, historians, and strategists of today have been pushing the U.S. Congress to more heavily and more rapidly fund the Space Force and associated technologies, but there is still some pushback and confusion as to why these are presently needed. Quast ultimately makes the case that the United States must be able to bring kinetic power, non-kinetic power, and informational power to the battlefield cheaper and faster than its adversaries in order to ensure strategic advantages in space. He goes on to say the technology is on the engineering benches today, but most Americans and most members of Congress have not had the time to really look deeply at what is going on here. But I've had the benefit of 33 years of studying and becoming friends with these scientists, that this technology can be built today with technology that is not developmental to deliver any human being from any place on planet Earth to any other place in less than an hour. Pretty incredible stuff. I've always said he who controls space controls Earth, and so it will be. We'll see you next week right here on X Squared Radio. You can always reach me at bagnew@x2-radio.com. Go out and look for the good in others and help it to grow a little every day, and before long, you will have saved the planet. This is X Squared Radio. I'm Brooks Agnew saying peace, Earth Explorers.